welcome back to Love Your Food. This week we have a very nice and simple recipe for you using the Fiesta veggies that we made last week. This week we're making cornbread custard out of it. This is a delicious little side dish and a really interesting sort of alternative if you've got something planned for Thanksgiving. This is a great little side dish to serve with roasted meat. So let's go with our ingredients. So we're going to start with some cornbread, a couple of eggs. We're using a little bit of snacking cheese here, and I'll go into a little bit more detail about that later. Some milk, a little bit of butter, not this much, and we have some of the Fiesta veggies, the Fiesta corn with zucchini that we made last week. So first things first, the butter was actually part of another recipe, but we are going to use a little bit of it to line the inside of our ramekins. So do take a little bit to make sure that the inside of your ramekins are nicely greased. And if you would prefer to keep this dairy-free, then you can certainly, well, I say that, you do need the milk later, but if you don't want to use butter, you can also use just vegetable oil for this as well, some kind of nice neutral oil. And then we're going to start with our eggs. So we're going to crack our eggs into a bowl and get them lightly beaten. All of the ingredients will be in the description below. So we're just going to beat those not too much. We just really want to get them broken up a little bit. Make sure there's no big lumps of yolk or clumps of white or anything left in there. Then we're just going to add our milk. And mix that until it's well combined. We don't really need to incorporate a huge amount of air at this time, so we just want to make sure it's well combined. From there, we're going to add a little bit of seasoning, some salt, and a little bit of fresh cracked black pepper. And this is good to be getting on with. So make sure that that's all stirred in and again well combined without adding too much of the incorporating too much air. Now, as far as the cheese, we had a couple of really interesting little snack-sized cheeses. So this is an Applewood smoked cheddar that came in snack size, and the other one's just a really nice plain marble cheese that came in snack size. And we're just going to cut these up. We're not going to shred them. This is what we had on hand cheese-wise. So honestly, if you want to add cheese, and the cheese is entirely optional for this, but if you want to add cheese, add whatever you have on hand. This recipe is pretty versatile and will take many different kind of flavor profiles. So don't be afraid to experiment with whatever kind of cheese you have on hand. So we're just going to chop these into small pieces and make sure they're nice and easy to blend into everything. So we're just going to cut these until they're nice and small, little cubes. And don't worry about breaking them up too much right now. When we combine everything later, they're all going to break up a little bit in there as well. Okay, perfect. So we're going to add that to our veggies. Give that a stir, just make sure it's all well combined. This will also help to break up your cheese a little bit, so if you've got big clumps, this will help break it up. You can see everything's looking pretty well combined in there. If you see big clumps, you can break it up with your fork just to make sure that everything's sort of in smaller pieces, and make sure that everything's just broken up in there and well mixed. Next, we're going to take our cornbread. Now, it helps if this is a little bit stale, but not super stale. So you want a day or two old, but not super old that cutting it is going to make it just completely fall apart. Because you want some cubes, but it's okay if it falls a little bit apart so that you have some of that crumb mixed into your mix. So we've got that cut into cubes, and we're just going to add that directly into our egg and milk mixture. So in it goes. And I'll put a link on a card somewhere around here for the cornbread, and there will also be a link in the description. Now we're going to let that soak everything in once we've added our veggies and cheese. So we're going to toss that in. You want to make sure you get all of that nice flavor off the side of the bowl. And then you want to mix it pretty gently. You don't want to break everything up into tiny, tiny little pieces. You want some texture from the cornbread, but you do want to make sure that all of that cornbread gets some of that custard soaked into it. So once you've got it pretty well combined and everything is well mixed, you can see that all of the custard is soaked into the cornbread, or at least that all of the cornbread has some custard in it. Now we can transfer it into our ramekins. So we're just going to take a little ladle and put that into our ramekins. If you're really careful, you can get them all pretty even with the distribution of the veggies. If you don't care, that's fine too. Everyone has a slightly different experience. And these aren't going to puff up a whole lot. They're not going to expand. They're not going to souffle. So don't be afraid to get them really close up to the edge of the ramekin. You're not going to have a big problem with them overflowing or anything while they're cooking. But as we've done with other custards that we've done recently, we are going to be doing these in a bain-marie. So we are putting them into this roasting pan with a towel on the bottom and adding some hot water just to make sure that they have this nice, even and gentle temperature all the way through, and a little bit of moisture steaming around them to make the cooking a little easier on the custard. And you want to use hot water to start with so that it takes less time for everything to come up to temperature. So we just let it boil in the kettle, and when it's ready to go in the oven, we pour the hot water in so that everything starts cooking right away. And once they have a nice little bit of brown on top, honestly, they're done. You do want to make sure that they're not liquid or anything. If they are a little bit springy to the touch, they are ready. If they're, you can check with a knife. If you can just put a knife in, and if it comes out mostly clean, you're pretty much all the way there. And they will carry over a little bit when you bring them out of the oven as well. So just be cautious of that. And you can see this beautiful rich texture inside. That's the custard mixed with that great cornbread, and you get those lovely veggies in there, and it's really nice. It's a lovely flavor, great texture. It's a really nice side dish, very savory, and depending on the cheese you use, we had that smoky applewood cheddar, which had this amazing smoky flavor that just infused the whole thing. So we hope you'll try this, and that's it. So if you like this recipe, please do like and subscribe, and if you have any recipes you'd like to see Chef Caleb try on the channel, please let us know in the comments below. And remember to love your food.